When I asked you, are you waiting for life to start? 70% said yes. So you are not alone. I went to one of the best engineering colleges in the United States. It has an awesome history. During the industrial boom of America and even during the Second World War, the United States was an industrial giant. It is a machine of such size and power that not even the proud German engineering could withstand her output. My university produced some of the finest engineering men of the century, literally like Neil Armstrong. But when I graduated, I didn't feel like I was on their level. I didn't feel empowered to make decisions. I felt like I had to ask for permission to do things. I felt untested. I felt that there was something I was missing. I knew in my bones that I had skipped some important and vital step. When you complete your degree, you get a paper, but that does not transform you into a man. Over the next few years, I had to join the army, build and fail at business, travel across the world, experience love and loss, to eventually have a sense of grounded maturity. I have a sense of self-knowledge now. It took me a decade of trial and error to figure these things out. I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you how not to be a child stuck in an adult's body. The grotesque thing about the modern age is that there's no frameworks to understand when you achieve manhood. What are the exact steps you need to take the transition from a child to an adult, from a boy to a man? Nobody knows, least of all your boomer parents. A lot of self-improvement guys think that culture has started to decay because of TikTok or porn, but that's not true. The decline really started with the First World War. This terrible dysgenic war cost mankind some of its best men. Then of course the Second World War happened, which made the first one look like a rehearsal. Every country fed its best men into the meat grinder. The best men died in dishonorable battle, mowed down like grass, slaughtered like cattle. In fact, the best men were the first to die as they queued up to get enlisted. It was in the fires of that war that the world lost its traditions and its religions. It is from this unholy fire that the modern age of the neoliberal order was born. We've destroyed our cultures, so we default to the image that social media feeds us. It's fairly obvious to you and me that the social media image is fake, it's a bunch of lies, but it's not just because the influencers themselves lie. It's also because the algorithms push the image of a freakish super minority. Now, this is not another video about how social media is bad. I'm bored of such milquetoast opinions, and my message is quite different. None of this is to say that teenagers are silly or wrong to feel behind on life. In ancient cultures, there was a set point at which boyhood ends and manhood starts. The Spartans famously had the ritual of sending out their agoge graduates into the wild with a blanket and a spear. Only when they returned, if they returned, would they be initiated into the homoioi as a full-blooded Spartiate. The Maasai of Kenya to this day need to kill a lion with a spear to prove their ascension to full manhood. Only then do they get their full adult name or lion name. Here's a key idea that I need to explain with more clarity. Many YouTubers will emphasize this masculinity and danger aspects of these rituals, but they miss the point. These rituals aren't just about bravery, they're also a reflection of the competence needed to excel in their particular culture depending on their specific threats. The Spartans needed to know how to survive in the brutal conditions of their homeland. The Maasai needed to know how to gain mastery over the beasts of Africa. It wasn't just a matter of showing that you had balls. It was a matter of showing that you had balls and also the brains not just to survive, but actually win. Here's a different but highly similar example. Roman teenagers of patrician class would be sent abroad on missions of state. His father would usually send him with a trusted advisor or a slave. This is different from hunting lions or surviving the hinterlands of Sparta, but it made perfect sense for a young Roman man. It isn't just a matter of showing bravery, like I said. It's a matter of practical training. It's a matter of initiation, not as a matter of tradition, but a matter of education. These initiation rituals are a culmination exercise, a capstone project at the end of an educational series of steps. If you were a Roman patrician, you needed to know how to handle diplomacy and politics. You'd be tutored over years to what that looked like and then be put to the final test. Spartan youth would have done plenty of wilderness training under supervision before they were sent out alone. The Maasai youth would have hunted small prey, antelope and gazelle before actually facing off against a lion. Today, this progression and this initiation ritual is impossible because we have no consensus on what competence looks like or how to excel in society. Since we have no initiation rituals, teenagers must find their own way to demarcate the end of childhood and the beginning of full adulthood. Without any guidance, they have to look towards what activities adults can do but children cannot do. There's 3 categories of this. The first is the legally prohibited activities like underage drinking or drug use. The second is biological activity, sex, or if you don't have sex, then you have to settle for porn. The second is adventure. When you don't have adventure, you settle for video games. In a video game, you have initiation rituals built in. You have a tutorial that shows you the ropes. You have the boss fights that test your expertise. You have an epic vision and a meaningful story. You need to travel long distances to explore and do side quests to get rewards. Sometimes it feels like video games are more lifelike than real life. And so, the modern initiation ritual is just a selection of alcohol, drugs, casual sex, porn, and video games. This drive for a teenager to prove their worth to their tribe is a force of primordial power. The ambition of youth is the fire that forges the steel girders of civilization, the wall that defends the tribe, and the spear that strikes out into the enemy. It is the vitality of youth that builds empires and indeed burns them down. Our modern age under the rule of Leviathan conspires to smother that fire under paranoia, neuroses, addictions, and anxiety. And on top of this, you have the pharmaceutical intervention in the form of antidepressants and the psychological neutering in these school systems. Nothing makes my blood boil the way the modern society squanders its youth. The drive towards sex and intimacy is turned towards dating apps and pornography. Youth is for adventure, exploration, and to experience love of a woman for the first time. It is for friendships, it is for daring decisions, and the honing of one's innate talents. Even in olden times, when travel was perilous, the aristocratic youth would be sent overseas for mentorship. Julius Caesar was on such a trip when he got captured by pirates. Now this story, boys, is one for the ages. Caesar was about 20 or so when he was on a small ship to the island of Rhodes. And while Caesar was on this journey, some Corsican pirates had the great misfortune of boarding and capturing this small ship. Caesar was captured and held for ransom by these pirates. And when he learned that the pirates were going to demand 20 talents for his release, he laughed and told them that he was worth at least 50. Imagine the attitude of this man at such a young age. He was so sure of his worth that he negotiated his ransom up, not down. Even as a captive, he would not act like a prisoner. He would play music, he would sing songs, write poetry, and basically he treated the whole thing like a little vacation. He'd even practice speeches to his pirates. In fact, that's why he was going to Rhodes in the first place. He wanted to be mentored by the finest orators of the globe. He knew the power of speech. He knew that that was more powerful than any shield or spear. He was utterly carefree in captivity. I want to drive this point home because it is important. We moderns stress out and have anxiety because our grades are low on an exam or some chick said that she wasn't interested. This level of anxiety and doubt is gay. A captive man, Caesar, had more life force than we do in the comfort of our homes. I think of how much delusional faith Caesar had in his future and see if I can emulate even 1% of his aura. But get this, when Caesar was eventually freed, his story did not end there. He came back. Caesar rallied troops at that young age at the port of Miletus and went after the pirates. He found them on the same island on which he was held captive, and he captured them in turn. And this is where the story turns red. The governor of Asia Minor actually wanted to punish the pirates, but didn't want to necessarily kill them. But Caesar had other plans. He didn't just kill them, he crucified them. Caesar was obviously no ordinary man. That's for sure. I think the older and wiser Caesar wouldn't have done this. I think he was young and bloodthirsty. In a different universe, if Caesar hadn't gained political power in Rome, he would have joined the pirates and become the king of pirates. Caesar as the king of the Mediterranean. Now that would be a fan fiction I'd be interested in writing myself. But here's the key point. Even Caesar needed mentors. He looked up to Gaius Marius, his uncle, and he was mentored by Crassus and Pompey. Ancient societies had mentors that would help craft the psyche of the next generation to pass the torch of illumination when the time is right. What mentors have we in this most banal of ages? Which fat, unread boomer would be a mentor to us? The youth of our age is withering away. The youth are the future of society, and the future looks anxious, depressed, neurotic, medicated, and spiritually burnt out. The youth is wasted in video games, porn, casual sex, alcohol, and also needless and unnecessary schoolwork, which I think is the worst of all these. Some young men will waste their time playing video games, and others will waste it studying calculus because their idiot school board or their ignorant parents made them. It's all the same in the end. At least video games are fun. But here's the real kicker. Even in modern times, we did have rites of passage. We had mentorship and we had initiation rituals. Just as little as 20 years ago, we had it all. The Boy Scouts were this institution. Young boys would learn the basics of survival skills, appreciation of nature through the identification of plants and the identification of animal tracks. They'd have mentors who were long-term outdoorsmen who would teach these skills and impart wisdom to the young generation. The Boy Scouts had a mission. They would serve nature and they would serve society. They had uniforms. They had a clear competence progression through the earning of badges. This is the modern equivalent of an initiation ritual. But they killed the Scouts, man. This particular act by the Leviathan boils my blood more than most. The infiltration and the overturning of the Scouts was a devastating blow to our society. Many great men came from the Boy Scouts. Neil Armstrong actually came from the Scouts. In fact, I was in the same fraternity as Neil Armstrong was when he was in college. The story of the fall of the Boy Scouts is a sad story. First, they made the Boy Scouts no longer fun for boys by banning all the activities that young boys actually enjoyed. They banned water gun fights, they banned dodgeball, banned mechanical bulls, all the fun stuff that guys actually want to do when they're young. And then, of course, they became gay. There's no other way to say it. They allowed gay and transgender leaders and volunteers. Naturally, they lost the support from parents and religious organizations. Then, of course, the sexual abuse scandals picked up, attendance dropped even more. And then they let girls in. It's all political. They knew exactly what they're doing. None of these people wanted the Boy Scouts to succeed. They did it purposely to kill this movement. But what can we do? First, there is hope. Smaller movements have already been started by men who were scouts in their youth to provide their sons with what their fathers had provided to them. So what if this huge organization lies dying? In fact, it's because of their size that they were targeted so much. Smaller decentralized scouting movements could actually be the future because it's more anti-fragile to attack. When we become fathers, it will be up to us to enroll our sons in the future version of the Boy Scouts. And if one doesn't exist, we'll have to make it ourselves. But of course, what about the steps that we can take right now for our own personal growth? We never had any initiation ritual, so we have to make it ourselves. The key component in an initiation ritual is not just proving to the tribe that you are an adult, but more importantly, it is to prove to yourself that you're an adult. Most young guys join the army to prove that they have what it takes. But obviously, this is not a recommendation. It may not be the best choice for you. You can start going to a martial arts gym. I don't care which kind of martial arts it is. The initiation ritual for you might be to get into your first ever real fight. But I'll say that there's certainly a real risk of injury, which I know too well. There's a reason why I had to step back from martial arts. But martial arts and fighting is certainly not the only option. It depends on your inner nature. If you don't like physical combat, but love gardening, why not sign up for this organization called WOOF? They connect you with an organic farm where you'll get hands-on experience and competence at farming. Hell, if that seems too challenging, at least go camping. Most guys haven't spent a single night under the stars and they wonder why they're depressed. If you're interested in business and entrepreneurship, maybe you should join a growth house. A growth house is basically when a group of guys get together and create a high-tempo environment to supercharge their growth. Can you imagine the level of accountability you'd have if you had a progress check every single day? Can you imagine the physical growth if you went to the gym, went swimming, went running with a pack of wolves rather than alone? I want to host this myself. I want to create this for myself. I could do some in the US. I could do some in Europe. That's where my audience is. I am planning to organize these growth houses in the near future. So if you're interested in that, I've included a form below which you should fill in. Obviously, the success of such a growth house depends on handpicking the members to be invited. So if you're invested in this growth house idea and want to shape future projects, then you should join my private community, the Country Club. In addition to the community, you also get access to my courses, which used to sell for $300 each. Otherwise, travel could be a formative experience. I've done plenty of hiking, urban exploration, solo travel across the oceans. Here are some cool things that you could do. Cross the Alps, hike the AT, swim in the oceans, go camping, go rock climbing. If you like running, run a marathon. Find community in whatever interests you. It is a plebeian mentality to cry about modernity. It is the patrician mindset to ask what we can do about it. Comment below some ideas that you have of activities that would serve as an initiation ritual. Comment below some places and experience that were transformative to you. Don't ever believe the doomers. It's not over unless you believe that it's over. In fact, life has just begun. By the way, this is part 2 of a 2-part series. In part 1, I give you 5 rules that will prevent you from wasting your youth. If you feel that life is passing you by and you want a structured approach to make the most of your youth, you need to watch that video. I'll have the tile pop up at this time so you can complete your knowledge.